luggage and then just go out and do whatever you've been doing, as if I haven't been gone for 3 weeks. Like, there's not even any interest in spending that time with me. And I didn't accuse him of, wanting to go out with someone else, but it was very clear that just that quickly he had just forgotten that I was supposed to be important to him and someone that he was supposed to be prioritizing just that quickly. And our conversation had to have taken place less than 48 hours before. So I proceeded to grab my bags, and I just was going to try to, I don't know where I was going to go, but it was just so off-putting and disappointing, because it was like he was just trying so hard to just make me feel like I just was not important or desirable to hang out with. It was like, you haven't seen me for so long, and this is what you're going to do. So the feelings in my, the anxiety was so right that I was feeling, and I should have listened to that. I should have listened to my intuition. I should have, now that I look back, I should have known that that was just the ploy to get me back under his roof, because wherever I was too far away. So that was, an example of a Hoover and a grab back. And actually, he wound up not going out that night. He stayed in with me. And that evening, I discovered that he had spent the week with this mistress in another country on a romantic trip. And he had actually made the call to me asking me to come back while he was on this trip with her in another country, which is chilling. So I confronted him on that and just asked him why he didn't tell me that, and just clarified, you were with this woman when you made this call to me. You were actually on a trip with this other woman, and you were agreeing to end things with her to be with me. And I just couldn't get over the callousness of that. And he mentioned that she had been putting pressure on him to get a divorce, and that it was, becoming less fun for him. And so, yeah, he was willing and basically ready to end things, because now his lies were catching up to him. He was telling her that he was working on his divorce, and he wasn't relaying that to me. And we were clearly in therapy to work on the marriage and to figure things out, not necessarily work on staying together, but talking through the things that needed to happen. But it was very easy for him to just get rid of her. And it was just unbelievable. But the following morning, right before our 2-hour session, I questioned him. I said, so you've been on several trips with her and you haven't scheduled anything or indicated that you want to spend any time with me like that. And, why don't we try to plan a trip and do something that gets us out of this pattern of negativity, and maybe, gets us out of the setting, out of the apartment, and kind of in a space where we can just refocus and rekindle our relationship. And he was, his response to me was, it's too early for that. This isn't like that. We shouldn't be taking trips. Like, he was treating me like I was the new girlfriend who wanted to get closer, and not the wife who had known him and been with him for years. Now it was too much, too soon to go on a trip. So he just, and then then he accused me of being jealous and being petty because I wanted to schedule a trip because he went on a trip with her. And it was like, part of it is because, yeah, you went on a trip with her, and you've actually gone on several trips with her, including at a time that could have been our honeymoon. So yes, I am bringing that up, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It sounds like, because he claimed he didn't plan it, she planned it, and everything was very passive. And I'm like, well, what if I find something? Would you go? And he was like, why are you being petty? And it was just deflecting and projecting. And I'm like, I'm not being petty. I'm just asking, like, I'm just saying, would you go if I was able to find something that works so that we could work on this? And this, again, this is the day of our couples therapy, the event that he claimed he was looking forward to work on our relationship. And then, I said to him, I said, you asked me to come back, and I'm trying to figure out how we can work through this. And he said to me, I didn't ask you to come back. I didn't ask you to come back. And I was like, you did ask me to come back. And you told me that you would end things with this woman. And he said, I didn't say that. I said I would do it if I had to. If I had to. Does that sound like I wanted to do it? And I'm like, so what are you saying? And he's like, you chose to come back. You said you weren't coming back, and then you went and you bought a ticket, and you came back, and you didn't tell me before you bought it. And I was like, but you asked me to reconsider and to come back. And that was when my heart dropped, because it was like, that was just a ploy to get me to come back so that he could start the cycle again. He didn't want me to make the decision to leave, and for him to not have any ability to lure me back, or to make sure I was in a space where he could make sure that I was being affected by what was happening. And that was really tough, because his actions had shown me that. The willingness to just drop me off like some luggage and go back to his regular life now that he had me back in the house. And then now that he knew I was back under the roof, and, it would take a lot more effort and energy for me to leave again. He was telling me that I misunderstood what he said, and that he didn't ask me to come back, and that I said I wasn't coming back, and that he said that it was not a decision to end things with her, but he would if he had to. And so all of a sudden, all these words were just different. The meanings were different, and that was it. That was, we went to therapy, and the therapist recommended that we work on ourselves separately. And, she was very surprised to see me there. And, I explained to her, he asked me to come back and made some commitments to me that I thought would be reasonable for me to come back. And because I wasn't going to come back if things were going to remain the same, I had to put some parameters in place and boundaries in place, and he agreed to those boundaries, and that's why I was back. But she ultimately said that she had to discontinue our couples therapy because she was seeing a pattern of concerning behavior that indicated that there was some manipulation and other issues that needed to be worked out before we could work, separately as individuals, before we could work as a couple towards a common goal. And so that was that. But yeah, that was an example of a grab back. There have been several more. I'm currently, as of the time of this recording, dealing with one right now. And, it's anyone that's ever been through something like this knows that this is a tough thing to deal with, because your heart and your mind are not aligned. Your mind tells you this is a pattern of behavior. It's insincere. This person is just trying to get their way. And your heart tells you this person loves you, and they're going to change this time because they know how badly you're hurting and how much you want this to work. And it's just, They don't talk to each other. The heart and the mind don't talk to each other. And then there are other issues. As you know, I'm across the country, during the pandemic in a very isolated situation where I'm living in a city where I don't know anyone. And I spend a lot of time alone, and I yearn for going back home and feeling normal again and being closer to my partner, because we are still married. We are still in a relationship. It's not the relationship I want, but part of it, which of course he'll say it's because I'm far away, right? So when I get closer, because part of that is, well, maybe I can get closer and it'll get better. And I don't know if it'll get better if I get closer. I don't know. But I know that living alone for almost a year, this month will be a year, is not healthy. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone in my life. I wouldn't wish any of this. I wouldn't wish them to be in a situation like this with someone who has been abusive. I wouldn't want them to feel so desperate to have to leave and live somewhere far, far away from everything that they know. And I wouldn't wish them to go back to it. So it feels like all of my options are sucky. They're just not optimal. It's, the best of the worst possible scenarios. And, we still work together, and there's still a hold on me. I can't do no contact and just cut him off, because we still have a marriage to dissolve if that were to be the case, and I still need to make a living, and I still don't have any stake in the business that I helped start. So I'm completely financially dependent on him. And I think he knows that. And so of course he knows that, but he is definitely using that to his advantage. And so I'm trying to be strategic and safe. And, on a selfish level, I want to get out of here. I am going crazy now. Like, it's been a year. I cannot believe I'm here for this long. It's going on a year. And I'm incredibly isolated and lonely. Like, I don't drive. This place where I am, you have to drive to get around. I don't know anybody here. I just want to be around a place that feels familiar, where I have contacts, and our business is, where we lived, and it's where all of our projects are. And, my separation is pulling me further and further away from building relationships outside of him, and, continuing to establish myself as a businesswoman and a professional. And I just need to be back there. So I'm working on it, and we're talking about what those options look like. But yeah, this is, it's tough. It's tough. And, I feel like my brain has been scrambled, and that I'm in an upside down world. So that's just one example. There have been several, and the pandemic didn't help at all, because the next time I left, which happened several weeks after I returned, that's when the first lockdown happened, and it really isolated me because it stopped my momentum. I was unable to start my life over because the whole world stopped. And so the Hoover and grab bag was very successful again when I had to return. And each time I returned, I did notice his treatment of me was worse. So I'm a little bit wary of returning this next time, but I don't think I have a choice.